What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer, and today I wanted to take a closer look at some of the new characters we were introduced to in the new Shooting Star animated short, and consider their potential to be more than just side characters. Now, literally anyone can look at characters like this and cry, new hero, which is why I want to try and go at least one step further and actually analyze them to see if they have any real potential. Do they meet the playable hero criterias? What roles would they satisfy? Are these roles even something that fits the game? There's a lot to consider beyond just whether a character looks cool or not, so I'm going to seek out whatever realistic potential these characters may have to see if they really could one day join the hero roster. If you end up enjoying this video, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and without further ado, let's jump right on in. So before I get into analyzing them, I want you to first leave a comment down below saying which of these four you think could be future heroes, and preferably also explain why. After this video, I want you to go back to that comment and add to it if anything I say here changes your opinion. Now real quick, I want to clarify the criteria I'm going to be using to evaluate these characters. First is their visual similarity to D.Va. While the mechs are clearly from the same unit and share many design characteristics, different heroes in Overwatch must all have easily distinguishable silhouettes in order to make identification easier during a match. Second, the mechs need to have a discernible role and abilities. Given that they're already battle mechs, they're all going to be able to satisfy this at least a little. But the second criteria is checked by the third, which is whether the mech's role and abilities are something that is either needed or at the very least would work in the actual game. If the mech's designed to shuck corn, sorry, but that's not going to get you into the hero roster. And also to clarify, I'm going to refer to each of the pilots by their call sign, since that will be easier than me butchering their actual names. And while I know that every mech also has its own name too, I'm just going to refer to them by the pilot's name in order to simplify things. So let's start on the left and work our way across. First up is Casino. Judging by the design of his mech, I could almost see him possibly being a DPS, and likely being quite speedy due to its sleek shape. Outside of this though, the mech itself looks unique enough that I don't think there would be much issue with misidentifying his versus D.Va's during a match, especially since it seems to be a bit bigger physically. However, his mech also doesn't seem to have anything characteristically unique from the others. All four of the other mechs seem to each have a unique ability, which is an energy shield for D.Mon, defense matrix for D.Va, some kind of rocket pods for King, and drones for Overlord. I'll touch on each of these more individually once I get to each respective pilot, but none of the images or the mech's design seems to indicate any kind of unique ability for Casino. Perhaps this was intentionally left ambiguous for the time being, maybe in anticipation of him being designed into a full-on hero later down the line, but I think that's a bit of a stretch. At the time being, we have nothing to indicate that his mech is functionally any different from D.Va's, which to me isn't very promising. Aside from its sleek design, which would likely indicate speed, nothing about it feels outstanding. And I don't know about you guys, but a more mobile version of D.Va does not sound like something Overwatch particularly needs. So for the time being, I'm gonna have to give him an unsatisfactory maybe. Moving on now to the next pilot, we have D.Mon. D.Mon's mech would definitely be a tank, and while it does have a strong visual similarity to D.Va's mech, the sheer size and bulk alone would be enough to give it a unique outline on the field of battle, although that actually presents its own issues. Currently, Reinhardt and D.Va are tied as being the largest heroes, with each standing roughly 7.5 feet tall in armor and mech. And as we can see here, D.Mon's mech is nearly twice that size, standing at least 12 feet tall, if not more. Not only would this be a direct problem when it comes to navigating doorways on nearly every map, but it would make her a massive, easy to hit target. To compensate for his size, she would need to possess a ton of health and armor, but even then, she would basically become a bullet sponge, and likely be a huge ult charge battery for the enemy. While it's possible that she would have strong abilities to compensate for this, such as whatever this energy shield is we see her using here, I'm just having a really hard time seeing her fit into any of the maps we have currently. I'm all for finding new and clever ways to utilize and work around map layouts, but when you're physically too big to fit out the spawn room door, I think you've hit a hard limit. Maybe Blizzard could come up with a kit that would make use of D.Mon's immense size, but it just feels fundamentally problematic. And so, despite how cool D.Mon's mech is, it horribly fails the third criteria, and therefore I have to give it a big fat nope. Moving on to the third mecha pilot, we have King. For the first criteria check, he unfortunately gets the worst characteristics from both the previous, in that, like Casino, the overall shape and design appears dangerously close to D.Va's mech, maybe not so much that this alone would prevent it from working, but also, like D.Mon, it's physically larger than both D.Va and Reinhardt. It's not nearly as monstrous as D.Mon, but it's still quite tall specifically, which I find to be rather concerning. Again, if it can't fit through a spawn room door, it can't work as a hero. That could almost be a criteria in and of itself. In terms of its unique abilities, the only thing that stands out on it seems to be the dual rocket pods, which open up to reveal a number of projectiles. Again, this seems like a bit of an overlap with D.Va's own micro missiles, and while there are certainly things Blizzard could do to differentiate these rockets from other projectiles in the game, at first glance it's hard to see them as being unique. Perhaps they would be homing rockets? I have a hard time believing that an ability like that would go over well in the community, although maybe it could work as an ultimate. Like Casino, there could very well be more to the mech that isn't shown in the few images we have of it, but that factor isn't very promising when it comes to trying to find legitimate reasons to be added as a hero. In short, his mech seems to suffer from a culmination of what's working against the chances of the previous two pilots, but unlike Casino, who I think scrapes by with just enough plausibility, King doesn't quite make it for me. His mech height would offer similar problems to those listed for D.Mon, particularly the inability to fit through doorways, and he just doesn't have any unique enough design elements or discernible abilities to compensate. And so, like D.Mon, I'm going to have to give him a big fat nope. Now, this brings us to the fourth and final new mecha pilot, which is Overlord, and this is where things start to really get interesting. Considering the visual similarity criteria, his mech is roughly the same size as D.Va's, but by far the most unique looking out of the entire squad, as it's the only one to seemingly not possess any legs. While we see that all 5 of the mechs are capable of flight, Overlord's seems to be exclusively airborne, as indicated by how it's hovering when seen being stored in the mecha base. If this mech were to be added into the game, this aspect might be a problem. Perhaps he would only be slightly airborne, similar to how Zenyatta levitates. Or maybe his flight would be limited, like that of Pharah's. Or perhaps he'd have true limitless flight, like Mercy during her ultimate. This last one might sound absurd, but then again, who would have ever thought that a hero with the rolling mechanics of Wrecking Ball could work before his reveal? I'm not saying it's necessarily likely, but unlike the size issue of D.Mon's mech, infinite flight is something that would mechanically work and only be problematic when it comes to balance. Now, beyond this though, the other major thing to point out about Overlord's mech is its apparent special ability, which is drones. You may have missed it at first glance, but we can clearly see what appears to be a tiny drone thing flying behind him, and it appears to be one of 4 which are situated on the rear wing of the mech. Of all these special abilities we can discern from each of the 4 new mechs shown in the short, this drone ability, at least to me, seems to by far be the most intriguing. A drone controlling hero, or someone whose abilities revolve around the use of some kind of AI, or partially controlled companion, is something that the community has speculated about quite a bit. So it's certainly interesting to have a character like this introduced to the story. Like the ability to fly, drones are something that would likely be able to work mechanically in Overwatch, but could possibly be a challenge to balance. The closest thing we have to drones currently would probably be Symmetra's turrets, although they aren't nearly as mobile or autonomous as we might expect Overlord's drones to be. Perhaps they would work more similarly to Zenyatta's Harmony and Discord orbs, where you simply task them to an ally or enemy, and then they work their magic from there. Also, would the drones heal, deal damage, scout out enemies? To be honest, I could probably make a whole video delving into the possibilities of a drone controller hero, and it seems possible that Overlord could fit as one. Another interesting thing to note is that canonically, Overlord's drones shouldn't be able to work. According to D.Va's backstory, MEKA themselves originally used drones to fight until the Omnics started jamming their signals, thus forcing them to switch to human pilots. So why do Overlord's drones work when MEKA's didn't? This could perhaps be chalked up as a design oversight, or maybe even be written off as something future technology. Either way, I can't help but feel like Blizzard possibly had a good specific reason to design it like this. series. I'm not saying this was for sure in anticipation of adding Overlord as a future drone hero, but he's the one new mecha pilot that I honestly see as having a lot of real potential based on the little we know. Assuming Blizzard can find a way to balance a permanently airborne drone deploying hero, I think he could really give Wrecking Ball a run for his money when it comes to an unconventional yet functional hero design. Therefore, I have to give Overlord an outstanding viable. Again, I wouldn't necessarily get your hopes up for him joining the hero roster anytime soon, but if you had to pick a pilot to bet your money on, I'd have to recommend Overlord. And there you go, this has been my analysis of the 4 newly introduced mecha pilots. Do you agree with the points I made? And how does it compare to your own initial predictions? Again, be sure to update your original comment down below to share your thoughts, and please vote in today's poll card to share your opinion there too. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to leave a like and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and turn on notifications to keep up with all my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.